Hello and welcome to KRON4's 2021 Celebration of Pride. I'm John Schrabel.
And I'm Taylor Basacki. This year's Pride theme is All in This Together, and over the next half hour, our goal is to lift up the voices of those who have made amazing contributions to the LGBTQ community. One man who inspires so many is Justice Martin Jenkins. He's the first openly gay man to sit on the California Supreme Court. KRON4's Sanaz Tahernia shares his incredible story.
From the classroom to the locker room and now the courtroom, California Supreme Court Justice Martin Jenkins has risen to greatness as the first openly gay justice on that bench. Justice Jenkins grew up in San Francisco's Ingleside neighborhood, attending St. Michael's Catholic School. As the son of two parents who grew up in Jim Crow South, he was raised to be a proud black man. And it wasn't until later on that he realized he's gay.
It certainly became evident to me in my high school years that I had attractions to the same sex.
Justice Jenkins' path to the high court was an unconventional one, with several different stops along the way.
What I wanted to be is I wanted to be a muni bus driver.
There was no bus stop on his route, but there was a stop on the field. After graduating high school, Justice Jenkins enrolled at Santa Clara University and was captain of the football team there. His plan at the time was to graduate and become a high school teacher and a football coach. But things didn't go quite as he planned.
Head coach at Santa Clara was a gentleman by the name of Pat Malley. And he said, I think you should go to law school. You have good grades, you're team captain, you're a leader amongst the players on this team. And I think you could make more of a contribution to your neighborhood.
After graduating in 1977, Justice Jenkins applied to several different law schools, but as luck would have it, his career path took a short but an entirely unexpected detour.
I was a free agent with the Seahawks.
Yes, you heard correctly. Justice Jenkins was a defensive back for the Seattle Seahawks in 1977. He only played a couple of preseason games before realizing being a free agent wouldn't provide the security that a career in law would. He took his first step off of the football field and into the legal field and enrolled in USF School of Law. And it turned out he was thriving. He graduated in 1980, receiving an award for exceptional distinction in scholarship, character, and activities, catapulting himself onto an impressive path. In 1989, former California Governor George Deukmejian appointed him to the judges' bench at the Oakland Municipal Court. From there, he continued up the judicial ranks to the Alameda County Superior Court, the California Court of Appeals, the United States District Court, and finally, the highest court in the state. He is the first openly gay justice on the state Supreme Court bench, but it wasn't until his early 60s that he came out as gay, meaning he lived most of his adult life suppressing his sexual identity. Now at 67, the justice is living his best life with his partner, Los Angeles realtor Sidney Shand. But while his homosexuality wasn't a public focal point, it has been the fuel for his success.
Anyone who knows me knows my identity has been, as a gay man, perhaps the greatest challenge of my life. And it has not been easy. I am not here in spite of the struggle. I'm here because of the struggle.
If you're wondering what Justice Jenkins likes to do when he's not reviewing cases,
I'm taking piano lessons, and specifically jazz piano, and I've been engaged in that for about 3 years. And the one thing that I've come to know, you talked about I've done a lot of things and mastered quite a bit. Well, I will not master jazz piano in this lifetime.
And I'd be willing to bet that we'll see him performing on stage soon enough. Sanaz Tahernia reporting, KRON4 News.
Over the decades, San Francisco has become a hub for the LGBTQ community. And when celebrating Pride, it's important to remember those who came before us and their fight that led us here. Let's take a look back at the evolution of the LGBTQ community in the city and Pride throughout the years.
Called Queer or Trans.
Historian, filmmaker, and gender studies professor at Mills College, Susan Stryker says this set the foundation for LGBTQ people who moved west after World War II. By the 1950s, Stryker says San Francisco was home to two of the largest national gay and lesbian advocacy organizations, but many more groups and individuals would follow.
That has in turn translated into some significant political clout and visibility. I mean, Harvey Milk is one of the most famous examples of that, but even before that, in the 1960s, you had Jose Soria.
Stryker says it wasn't until 1972 that the city had its first official Pride celebration.
Some of the early activists traced the history of gay militancy in San Francisco back to the formation of a group called Vanguard, or back to the Compton's cafeteria riot rather than the Stonewall riot, to the formation of groups like the Committee for Homosexual Freedom. And it really wasn't until 1972 that you saw San Francisco kind of getting on the bandwagon, the Pride bandwagon.
This was only the beginning. The queer and trans community continued to call attention to sexual intolerance and social conflicts, including groups like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence Incorporated, which formed in San Francisco in 1979 when a group of gay men dressed up as nuns to satirize issues of gender and morality.
There were people who, resisted and felt we were interfering with the agenda of assimilating, the gay community assimilating. Well, no, we're being who we are, and we are using drag in service of the community.
The sisters could be found at many of the human rights protests over the years. Sister Mary Media says the nonprofit also played a large role in education during the AIDS crisis that gripped San Francisco in the 80s, a period that sparked the mobilization of other grassroots movements in the city. Since then, she says the LGBTQ communities helped to build a city that represents love, embraces diversity, and challenges the status quo.
San Francisco has always been a place that comforts the disturbed and disturbs the comfortable. And I hope that never changes.
Coming up on this Pride special, meet two queer Latinx artists who are on a mission to raise awareness one mural at a time.
Also ahead, meet a Bay Area trans pastor who has a message of peace and love for all of us celebrating Pride.
A trailblazing San Francisco pastor has made history, becoming the first openly transgender bishop in the United States Lutheran Church.
KRON4's Philippe Jagal shares their story and how Pride has led them to this historical role.
The more than 7 years Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer has spent as pastor at Grace Lutheran Church in San Francisco is coming to an end. They are now bishop-elect, and starting July 1st, will serve as bishop for the Sierra Pacific Synod, a cluster of about 200 Lutheran congregations in California and parts of Nevada.
My taking on this role of bishop is just one more job that now is abundantly clear is open to the full spectrum of gender identities and sexual diversity.
Baptized 24 days after birth, Bishop-elect Rohrer is a lifelong member of the Lutheran Church and now becomes the first openly transgender bishop in the larger Christian denominations in the world, a role they have coveted and ready to embrace.
Thankfully, the community of God and Lutherans in particular are, like all of culture, opening up to a much larger diversity that's maybe existed for a long time.
Grounded by their wife of nearly 7 years and 2 young children, Bishop-elect Rohrer says they are ready to serve as the pastor of other pastors and make Jesus more visible in the world.
Being the first person like me who takes on a job like this, to just have people who love me more than I deserve in my home life, is what makes that possible.
Their road to this moment has not been without hardship, having dealt with numerous instances of transphobia, but nothing they could not overcome.
Pride is an important time to say to people, choose life, live as fully fabulous as you can, because your being out or open or just authentic with who you want to be saves other people's lives when they notice that you embody something that is someone else's dream of how they could live in this world.
Proving dreams can come true. In San Francisco, Philippe Jagal, KRON4 News.
For this Pride Month, the San Francisco LGBTQ Center is honoring the community with its new mural called Queeros. It highlights local and national queer heroes, including Harvey Milk, Sister Roma, and more. The mural was created by 2 queer Latinx artists who are on a mission to raise awareness and spread love, one mural at a time.
Behind the many layers of paint, a decades-long history and strong message.
We've been working around the city and we're trying to do murals that represent the LGBTQ community here in the city. Anything that pushes for diversity, LGBT rights, we like drag queens and rainbows.
Muralists Manuel Carmona and Simone Malvallas were born and raised in San Francisco. They're the Latinx artists behind the LGBTQ Center's newest mural titled Queeros, which highlights local and national queer heroes for Pride Month.
They're celebrating queer icons who have been important through history.
We wanted to represent almost every color and every community we could.
Up here on this wall, there are 12 strong activists or icons from the past and present, including former San Francisco Supervisor Harvey Milk, drag queens Juanita Moore and Sister Roma, as well as Honey Mahogany, who now works in City Hall.
The mural facing Octavia Boulevard also features Freddie Mercury, Frida Kahlo, trans activist Sylvia Rivera, Stonewall Riots figure Marsha P. Johnson, artist Keith Haring, writer James Baldwin, dancer Willie Ninja, and singer Chavela Vargas. For Manuel, these faces are much more than just a name.
To me, I grew up in a world where I had to close the door to play with Barbies because it was not allowed. So the queer icons behind us and all the other murals we have painted, to me, the motivation is I want every kid to be free.
The duo continue to spread this message through other murals across the city, including this one at Alamo Square and another at the LGBTQ bar El Rio on Mission Street.
Well, this year marks 40 years since the first AIDS cases were reported here in the United States. Even with infections down significantly from the height of the virus, it is still claiming more and more lives. Here in the Bay Area, San Francisco has long been considered the epicenter of the pandemic. An estimated 35 million people have died from AIDS-related illnesses since the start of the epidemic 4 decades ago.
Profoundly in a different place in 2021 than we were in 1981, where it was truly a death sentence and it was completely tragic time in our history.
Dr. Monica Gandhi is a professor of medicine at UCSF and serves as medical director of Ward 86 HIV clinic at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. Although she says in the United States, every year some 50,000 people are diagnosed with HIV, the retrovirus that causes the AIDS condition, Dr. Gandhi also says treatment has improved tremendously over time.
We're definitely better off. I mean, essentially the antiretroviral therapies, really 96, then they got better in 2001, then they got even better in 2008. And by the time we're at 2020, they are so easy to take that one pill once a day will treat your HIV.
The CDC says the number of HIV infections decreased by 73% by 2019, compared to the highest rates in 1984 and 1985. But Dr. Gandhi fears the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in many infected people going undiagnosed because infectious disease and HIV doctors across the state had to turn their attention to the novel coronavirus. She says we are also not close to a cure.
What I'm actually really hopeful about for the next couple of years is the concept of an mRNA vaccine for HIV, because we learned from COVID how extremely effective mRNA vaccines are. And this is the new thought and the new test. And there's already been some animal testing with mRNA vaccines for HIV, that could we have ultimately an effective vaccine for HIV, which wouldn't cure it, but it would prevent it. And the cure is still being actively worked on.
The AIDS epidemic is not over. It is estimated that 700,000 AIDS-related deaths happen worldwide every year.
Here in the U.S., 13,000 people die each year from AIDS. We want to take a moment to recognize those who passed away from the illness. A landmark moment in the NFL. Raiders defensive end Carl Nassib has come out as the first ever openly gay player on an NFL roster.
Eric Rucker spoke to LGBTQ activists about the impact NASIB's announcement makes.
What's up, people? I'm Carl Nassib. I'm at my house here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Just want to take a quick moment to say that I'm gay. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but I finally feel comfortable enough to get it off my chest.
That's NFL player Carl Nassib using Instagram Monday to publicly come out as gay. Nassib is a defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders and is now the first active player in the NFL to say he is gay. The announcement is a victory for many in the LGBTQ community.
Now that there is a Instagram video of a good football player coming out, I mean, it's truly remarkable.
Will Hackner is the CEO of Varsity Gay League, an organization that offers recreational sports leagues in cities across the U.S., including Sacramento, for the queer plus community.
I think the NFL is sort of that last stockade before we really see a lot of other people feeling comfortable. I hope, at least.
In his video post, Nassib also says that he will be donating $100,000 to the Trevor Project.
They're an incredible organization.
The Trevor Project provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention for those under 25 years old in the LGBTQ community.
It's 2021, and so it's unfortunate that there are so few out professional athletes.
David Heitzman is the CEO of the Sacramento LGBT Community Center. Heitzman says whether it's an announcement or donation, both will go a long way for others.
Provide inspiration and hope to a lot of young people who are struggling themselves with their own identity.
I'm Eric Rucker, back to you.
A trailblazer in the sports world is retiring this year, but not before he broke many barriers.
In 2011, Warriors president Rick Welts became the most prominent sports executive to announce that he is gay. KRON4's Kate Rooney sat down with Welts and shares his story.
For Rick Welts, the love affair with the NBA started early. The Warriors exec got his start as a ball boy with the Seattle Supersonics at 16 and went on to spend nearly 5 decades in the league before announcing his retirement earlier this year. But from the beginning, Welts knew there was something else that made his career unique. He was gay.
There was nobody who had gone through life with an experience like mine who had been out and who, you know, I could look at it and say, wow, that could turn out pretty well. So that was always just a big unknown.
Personally, Welts was out to those closest to him, like family and friends. But as he ascended through the ranks of the NBA, he kept his sexuality a secret professionally.
I didn't ask what they did that weekend because I didn't want them to ask me what I'd done that weekend. So I was never not myself, but I never was my complete self.
In May of 2011, that changed.
I lost my father. My mother had been diagnosed with lung cancer, had a 14-year relationship that was breaking up in large measure because I couldn't bring the person closest in my life into my work environment, or I chose not to. So I just decided the time was right.
At the time, Welts was the president and CEO of the Phoenix Suns. Coming out publicly meant becoming the highest-ranking executive in men's pro sports ever to do so. His story made the front page of the New York Times.
There's not a week that goes by that I don't get an outreach from somebody in the sports community who's struggling with the same issue as I did. So that part of it's been really a blessing.
Despite his fear of the unknown, his career flourished. Welts was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2018, and he continues advocating to make pro sports a safe space for the LGBT plus community.
I think we're definitely in men's professional sports behind where society is. We're behind where women's professional sports is. It had a much more leadership position here. So I think we still have a lot of work to do.
As for Welts' personal life, things are good. He wed his longtime partner last year and will stay on with the Warriors as an advisor.
I'm going to find a couple of passion projects. I don't think I'll be very good at retirement, whatever that is. So I'll find some things that hopefully I can put my experience to work in something that will be personally gratifying and maybe something that will do some good.
San Francisco Pride Parade and celebrations are not happening again this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But this isn't stopping people from reflecting on what Pride means to them.
With parade and event cancellations, San Francisco Pride may not be the same for yet another year. But for many, LGBTQ Pride reaches far beyond any parade route.
It still means a big celebration, even though we haven't been physically able to do that for the past year, it is still allowing all of us to have a deeper connection with each other.
But I do think it is an opportunity to really dig deep and for all of us to really think about what Pride means to us, what it means to the community, and really get back to the essential roots of Pride, which is really about owning our own sense of who we are, our right to exist in the world.
Pride is authenticity for some.
Pride means, bringing my whole self to every situation, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's to a Zoom meeting, whether it's to a coffee date.
And shattering stereotypes for others.
It's really about breaking out of boxes, breaking out of assumptions of who people think that we should or should not be.
It's a reminder of how far we've come.
We need to respect those who came before us, respect their accomplishments.
And an echo that we still have a long way to go.
While it is a celebration, it's also a reaffirmation that we are here and we need, equality and respect.
It's also important because the work isn't done yet. If all you have to do is read the paper, watch the news, and you can see that in states around this country and in countries around the world, queer people continue to experience oppression. There are folks for whom it is not safe to come out. Trans folks in particular are experiencing discrimination on a regular basis. American states are coming up with new ways to pass laws to express their disapproval of queer people and trans folks.
Still recognizing a long journey ahead, many can agree Pride is about unity and hope for change.
Pride means something different to every person, and it's important to celebrate all our aspects of Pride.
Which is why all of us here at KRON4 wanted to share these stories of empowerment and leadership within the LGBTQ community. Thank you for joining us for this 2021 Pride Special.